So, welcome to the Treasury Elite Leadership Series. I would like to thank all our viewers and members for supporting this noble cause of Treasury Elite, whose main objective is networking, knowledge sharing, and mentoring. Time and again, we bring in world class speakers and thought leaders across the globe in the field of treasury, global markets, management, and leadership, and conduct various programs and webinars and conferences in different formats. Treasury Elite Leadership Series is one such format where we learn from industry leaders about their experiences about running their businesses, opportunities and challenges they encounter, and broad trends they see for the future. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Abhishek Goenka, founder of IFA Global and Treasury Elite. We bring in world-class FX and treasury practices for companies across India for the last 15 years. And today we have Mr. Sanjay Dutt. Mr. Sanjay Dutt is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Tata Realty and Infrastructure Limited and Tata Housing Development Company. He has over 24 years of experience in the real estate sector with various international real estate developers and property consultants. He brings with him extensive experience in real estate strategic planning, development, redevelopment, leasing, new acquisition, asset management business across geographies of India. Prior to joining TRIL, Mr. Dutt was CEO of Ascendus Sinbridge India operation and private funds, where he was responsible for managing the real estate, asset management, development, and acquisition predominantly in the space of IT, SEZ parks, and industrial township. Previously, Mr. Dutt served as an MD of Cushman and Wakefield, India, and CEO Business of JLL. He is also the governing council member of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, advisor council member of GRI, GBCA, and member of CoreNet Global. Welcome, Mr. Sanjay. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for calling me. Really grateful for your time.
Glad to have you today as a part of Treasury Elite Leadership Series. In the next 30 minutes, we would love to know about your experiences. So, these are very interesting times, sir, and I would like to ask you a question on the work from home concept, which has recently started. I mean, is work from home more of a short term fad or a strong long term trend? And what is your expected medium and long term view and impact that work from home is going to have on office and residential sectors?
Work from home is a 15-year-old concept which has been in India last 15 years. In the IT company space, where they are very well equipped for communicating and doing business, if you know, the outsourcing business is actually offshoring outside of your country. That itself is remote in a way, correct? So somebody is using credit card in US and Europe, and the transaction is getting processed in India. And more importantly, many IT companies, in my earlier role as the managing director of Cushman & Wakefield, I was responsible for one IT company to roll out work from home strategy. And they had 45,000 people out of 145,000 people in India working from home. Even today, they have 35,000 people working from home pre-COVID.
Sure.
After COVID, of course, the 98%, they have no choice. So it is indicating that this concept has evolved. And with this pandemic, a lot of non-IT companies who have not used work from home as a concept are also looking at this as a concept. My takeaway from this, last 3 months of analysis is a lot of blending of work experiences will happen. It would be complementary. Work office environment will change. You will still need offices. It's not that offices will go away. It's just that you will need less of office space and it will be repurposed. The purpose of the office will be very different than it used to be. And I would say the business need for office space in last 10 to 15 years has come down. Earlier, each company used to take 125 square feet per workstation. And over the last 15 years, it has come down to 75 square feet per person, especially in the outsourcing industry. So it is already substantially down. Then in addition to this, flexible workspaces came in. And the co-work space was kind of a concept in this direction. So industry has been evolving. It's just that this pandemic will now accelerate the pace, complemented by digitization and technology will enable remote working and will set a new culture in the work environment.
I wanted to ask you that India has close to around 600 million square feet grade A office stock. How
Yes.
much of it will move to REITs over the next 3 to 4 years? I understand a lot of promoters are also coming up with the fresh REIT going forward. Given there is so much private capital from PE funds and sovereign wealth funds chasing completed assets, why would developers go for REIT listings?
I believe you will see nearly 100 million square feet listed by June next financial year. One is getting listed, as you know, coming week. One is already listed. And with the third entry in the next financial year, it'll be 100 million square feet. I believe the appetite of Indian developers would be at least 300 to 400 million square feet in next 2 to 3 years. Conservatively speaking, that is what I would expect. Also, as you know, the existing REITs which will get listed, they will also keep adding to the portfolio. So that will further take the tally to approximately 300 million square feet. They could also be private REITs, not just public REITs. So that potential remains. Generally, every developer and investor who's investing in real estate, fundamentally, they all want to make money. And if they can make more money by publicly listing it, then that would prevail. I believe the yield compression in commercial real estate from the highs of 14 net yield at one time, this was long time ago, of course, to down to 10 and then subsequently 9.5, and now trading at 8 cap, potentially perhaps 7.5 cap in not so distant future is a reality. And obviously, simultaneously, you see interest rates going down, inflation going down, etc., etc. So I think this is a great sustainable story.
Sure, sure, sure. So where do you see the next big opportunity in the real estate? Is it the emerging asset classes like warehousing, data centers, etc.?
It is in the B2B space, which is very organized, because you are talking about green, platinum, gold LEED certified buildings. India has the largest collection of green buildings in the world.
Okay.
India has top Fortune 100, 500 companies of the world already occupying office spaces. And then you have world-class asset managers who are right now embarking on the journey and building competencies and skills. And the regulatory environment, which SEBI has done a wonderful job of putting out this, the REIT guidelines, which has been very well done. And therefore, going forward, it'll be even more transparent and professional. The government of India has taken many steps to further make the sector more transparent and regulated. I think all of this will actually lead to more opportunities, and segments such as warehousing, which is at a very nascent stage, which is where office market was 20 years ago, I think is already witnessing surge, not only from new demand, but the old C category, poorly managed warehouses are now very keen to move to well-managed, well-designed, and with logistics even better planned warehouses. And with the GST implementation, that has become even more easier to kind of execute. And further, there is a lot of institutional capital, which is also pursuing warehousing and logistics. Data center is even more easier. And the reason is, for warehouses, you have to go to remote location. But for data centers, even the IT locations would make sense. So initially, Mumbai and Chennai will see a surge of 100 to 200 megawatt data centers coming up. Going forward, you may touch about 500 plus megawatt. And then cities like Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Gurgaon and Noida will follow, including Mumbai. So we already see a lot of interest there. Since both of these segments have world-class occupier, would be very easy to implement. The challenge in data center is the scale. Data center is not real estate heavy. It is power heavy. Quality of power and cost of power matters. So for a company and a real estate development company to do a listing, at least you need to have a portfolio of 1,000 crore to 2,000 crore rent per annum as a net operating income to be able to attract global institutional investors when you list at the stock exchange. And that would be very difficult to build, because first of all, data center is concentrated only in Mumbai and Chennai to begin with. And the developer in Chennai is different than Bombay. So each one of them will have one data center. For them to do a REIT will be very difficult. So that's not going to happen. So it's going to take time for that portfolio to get built. On the other hand, the warehousing will happen sooner. The scale there is sufficient to enable at least 2 or 3 REITs in next 5 years in that space.
Sure. So my next question to you is, sir, a lot of people I know, they are extremely overweight on commercial real estate. Of course, the yields were very nice as compared to residential. And so the question that they ask is, how should they manage their portfolio in the current times? Should they move to residential, or should they reduce their asset allocation towards real estate?
Are you specifically talking about retail investors or institutional investors?
I'm talking about people who have 300, 400 crores worth of property who are invested in large commercial real estate.
So first of all, each of these real estate asset class is unique. Residential traditionally is capital appreciation segment. So you have, which obviously last few years been a bit under the weather, and values have eroded in many ways. But right now it's a huge opportunity. Valuations are low, and because of an inventory worth close to 5 lakh crores will be stuck projects, the competition and delivery would be even more difficult. The launches have also come down. So, which means the probability of sales going up and values going up in the medium term, which is 2 to 4 years, is very high in residential, because you're entering the market at the third bottom that we have discovered in the residential segment. That never has happened in India. You have discovered one bottom, but not 3, right? On the other hand, commercial is a yield play. It's high on capex, but it gives you a very high credit. Like I said, Fortune 500 companies equivalent. So you can allocate your capital, but I would still bet on commercial, because you once sign 10-year contracts in commercial. In residential, you can't go beyond 2 or 3, right? And capital and cyclical movements of residential may be shorter, which means you may see setbacks. In commercial, if you have a 10-year contract, even though lock-in expires after 3 years, the fact that tenant puts 2,000 to 4,000 rupees per square feet on interior fit out, they're not going to leave the property in a hurry.
Right.
Due to pandemic, they may partly surrender and leave, and some company may go bankrupt. Some small companies who are not financially sound may suffer, but the organized part of the real estate, which is 600 million square feet we're talking about, they will be sufficiently insulated. There may be some exceptions there as well, but not dramatic. Unless, of course, the global economy just falls apart, and then you and I will no longer be talking about the risk. We'll be talking about something else.
Sure.
So I think that is what I would distinguish between the two segments. I would actually use commercial mostly for yield, but use opportunistically key locations in key cities, because the values in city area has never been so low, at least in my life.
Sure. So, in terms of management, I would like to ask that how do you maintain a spirit of competitiveness and bring consistency in the way organizations act and think? I mean, your organization acts and think. And how do you ensure that culture does not isolate in the corner office?
I believe Tata Group itself has very high and strong customer-centric culture, employee-centric culture, ethics, governance, everything. It's a role model for Indian corporates, and I would say global corporations, to take a clue from Tata Group companies. So we inherit a lot of that culture, and each of the companies actually want to ensure that we continue the same. And that actually completely depends, it flows from the top, as you know. So if the leadership of the organization is aligned with the corporate ethos and the governance, the culture that you want to set, there is absolutely no doubt that that's how the rest of the organization would get built. The single most contributing factor is a genuine concern of employees. I believe very strongly that if the people in the organization are not happy, they can never make a customer happy. If the vendors who are our partner in doing construction, if they are not happy, then we will never be building happy homes, for sure. If our tenants in the office complexes are not looked after, then they will not be around our offices for too long, right? If our investors are not making money, then we would lose the appeal as an organization. So we see all these with a single lens. Everybody matters. And once you build that and lead by example, it kind of builds as a culture. The other culture that we build is the performance. Businesses are extremely competitive. I think it would be an understatement for me to make that we have to put in twice the effort to generate same revenue that we used to generate 10 years ago, right? And all your Form 16s are no longer showing 15% increase in salaries, correct? On the contrary, some of them may be showing negative. And it is how it should be. You cannot have fixed costs going up by 15-20% to maintain your profitability. It's not sustainable. And therefore that correction has happened, that discipline has happened, and that culture of high performance has come in, not just in Tata companies, but I think across the globe. And to be able to then sustain yourself as an organization or as an individual, as a performance, you have to deliver the results and meet the expectations. So I think that messaging and a very large component often gets covered also when you actually uh, link variable pay, the incentive program, the bonus program linked to performance of the individual, and you link part of that bonus to company's performance. So if you split 100% of your variable component into two, corporate and individual, the culture of performance would come in. And more importantly, it's not just the money aspect, it's your own self-esteem, your own individual brand that you want to build as a professional. That gets compromised, right? So I think this culture is being adapted by the young. The earlier generation was somewhat taking things for granted, but now they have learned the hard way that if they don't step up, they will not be able to perform, and then they will not be able to sustain their growth. The other thing is the organizations like us, and thanks to our group, we have built great institutions, Tata Administrative Services, lot of programs, Tata Business Excellence Group, which basically leads to innovation, leads to system and processes being refined. The dominance of Tata Group companies in various sectors, whether it is IT, TCS, for example, is the world amongst the top 2 and 3 companies, or steel, or motors, or many other businesses, Tata Power Limited, Tata Projects Limited, Taj Hotel. These are institutions. So when you work for these institutions, you are groomed for performance. You're groomed for a culture. And I think that's why if somebody wants to, as a young person wants to build a career, they want to work for these companies to be able to lay a strong foundation of their career in the company. So we are quite blessed, and we use a combination of all of this to build a culture of performance.
Sure. That's a pretty interesting, thoughts that you have shared, and I'm sure all the professionals and all the entrepreneurs who are listening to this, they're going to have some key takeaways from this particular definition of yours. So my next question, sir, is, one of your most extreme life-changing experience, if you can share with us, and how your professional life and personal life have evolved post that.
I have a 3-letter word which I learned 20 years ago. It's called ACT. Most of the strategies are never implemented. If you simply start acting on those strategies, you see a performance. You may fail in few of those, but I think you definitely see a lot more result and traction in the business if you simply act. The other most important aspect in building a high performance, which I've actually been very fortunate, and this goes into value systems of the family. And I think the middle class family in India particularly, we are just blessed the kind of values that we've been groomed with. So a genuine sense of responsibility, whether you're a good citizen of the country or the organization or towards your parent, these values drive a lot of your decisions in professional life. So if you're genuinely caring and well-wisher of everyone, the rub-off effect of that is quite tremendous. And I've learned that I have worked for top 5 firms in last 27 years. And the single most valuable enrichment that I've taken is the deep bond and relationship with the colleagues that I've worked with. So leave aside qualification, experience, just the the respect and connect and emotional connect. And when you interact in the industry, and when you see that some of those decisions have led to creation of leaders, that is extremely satisfying and fulfilling. And that gives you, every leader needs some self motivation. And in a role like CEO or an MD, there's a lot of burnout given the challenges of the business. So these things actually help you drive it. And I think that has been the most single important factor.
Sure, sure. So, how is Sanjay as a person? And what are your three rituals for the day? Please take us from your fitness and spiritual journey, if any.
Uh, so I'm pretty, the most obvious thing for me is that, sorry, let me just quickly, can you repeat the question?
I said, how is Sanjay as a person? And what are the
Mhm.
three major rituals for you during the day? And please take us through your fitness and spiritual journey, if any.
Uh, First of all, I believe in work ethos. So I think, as a professional, that what keeps me driven. I believe in that very strongly. So I'm pretty clear in the previous evening that what I have to do for the next week or a month or 2 months. Because in the current role, you need to have a lot of strategic initiatives and drives, and a lot of tactical tasks that you do in your day-to-day work. So that really drives me. I always think some time with the family uh, helps you give a kind of a break which you need to rejuvenate yourself. And I do that in the evening with the family. The other principle related to work and family is, and the entire industry knows, that Friday evening onwards, Sanjay is with the family. So if somebody wants an appointment on Saturday, the family is with me. Uh, so it's commitment to those simple principles that has helped me kind of balance and also keep reinventing myself and go through some difficult challenges.
Sure. One last question. One fun fact about you that people
Uh,
don't know.
I believe creativity in today's profession is extremely important. And I was very lucky that back in my teens, I used to sketch and paint.
Oh,
Now, now in the boardroom and in the business place, you need, and managing the difficult times of business, you need all kinds of creativity that you can think of. I'm very lucky that about 15 years ago, I accidentally discovered that I have huge interest in jewelry.
oh,
Yes, I think I am more fascinated by jewelry than my wife. So I created a piece for her, which was more of a concept, and then I got it executed by a jeweler. I subsequently did 15, 20 pieces for her. So I designed jewelry for my wife, and I'm very pleased that some of those pieces have actually gone commercial by the jeweler who actually did the work. So that's something which
excellent.
not everybody knows.
Excellent. Now, that's something very, very new, very, very different. I mean, this is something which I've never heard in the past. And I'm sure it must be a piece of art with so much of passion and love that you have made the jewelry for your wife. I'm sure that thing is coming out. And somebody else, maybe a jeweler, is making a commercial sense out of this. But it's been a lovely conversation with you, sir. Thank you so much for giving such an holistic idea about the real estate market, how REITs are shaping, and how asset allocation needs to be done. I think it's going to be very, very useful for people who have had very, very large investments in residential and commercial over the last 10 years? Because that's a question everybody's been asking, that where is the future going? And also opportunities that you have shared in terms of the warehouse and data centers that are going forward. I think it's going to be very, very useful. Thank you so much for taking out time. I wish you, your entire colleagues at Tata Group, and your family all the very best. And may you stay safe and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for giving me the opportunity.